Hello, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. My name is Kyla, and am I a 36-year-old lady who loves YA? Yes, I am. But I'm not ashamed of that whatsoever. And specifically, I love YA horror. I just think it slaps, okay? Did I just say it slaps? I did. It does. It slaps, okay? I just love it, and I really prefer it to adult horror. I think there's just something about it. I love that YA horror has a deeper meaning behind the stories than just to gross you out or scare you. There's a lot more social horror going on inside YA, which I really appreciate. I think that there is a time and place for the gore and the gross, and don't get me wrong, I definitely like to indulge in that sometimes, but I do find with adult horror that the social side of things isn't as present. Not for all horror, but for a lot of it, I find it's just not as present. So I like that side of YA where we have these deeper meanings woven into the stories and woven into the creepy, and I just really appreciate that, okay? And I just I'm gonna shout it from the rooftops because I need more people to be aware that YA horror is actually so good. So in this video, I'm going to share with you 8 of my favorite YA horror, the ones that I would recommend top tier. Honestly, there are so many more that I cannot wait to read, but these are the ones that I have to recommend first. So let's just go ahead and dive in. The first one that I'm going to recommend, I actually don't own a copy of, and it's honestly a little bit of a crime at this point, but I really want to hold out for the paperback because so many of my YA books are paperback. Anyways, that's besides the point. It's These Fleeting Shadows by Kate Alice Marshall. Oh my goodness. If you are looking for a good haunted house story, this is the one for you. And I have been craving a really good haunted house story since I read Home Before Dark. And I've read so many in between there that just haven't hit as hard and as creepy and just were as enjoyable until I read this one. In this one, we are following Helen and her mom, when she was really young, fled from her family home, and Helen doesn't really remember why, and then her grandfather passes away, which means that they have to go back to this house where all of her family members are there. They get to the house and some sinister things start going down. I'm gonna keep the synopsis of these pretty vague. If you know me, you know that's kind of how I operate. But this one I loved. It was so creepy, it was so atmospheric, and it goes in a way that I wasn't expecting, but I'm so happy it did. I just feel YA horror kind of breaks the mold in that, where it's really not afraid to take risks, and this one specifically does take a bit of a risk at the end, but I really loved it. I so appreciated the ending, and I was fully engaged and needed to know what was going down immediately. I could not have read this fast enough. I also listened to the audiobook, and I really recommend that as well. I think that it was just so dark and creepy, and the audiobook really brought that to life. I find that a lot with these books, and I will let you know if I have listened to the audiobook or not. Something else that I really love about this book, and honestly with a lot of them this is very present, is that we do have queer representation in this book as well. So it's truly a coming of age story while also being a queer kind of romance story, while also being a haunted house story that's actually hella creepy. I mean, need I say more? It's incredible, and I highly recommend it. This next one that I have to recommend is probably going to be no surprise to any of you who have watched my channel, been on my social media, because I have talked about this book so much, but for good reason, because it's freaking incredible, and that is The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson. If there is anything that Tiffany D. Jackson does really well, it is bringing social horror into her stories. And what I mean by that is bringing things that are happening in real life. So for example, in this one, this is a kind of Carrie retelling of sorts, but bringing things that are happening in our world today, our social issues, into the story. So in this one, we have our main character, Madison, and she is going to school, and she is passing as white, but she's actually half black. And one day it starts to rain and her hair starts to get curly, and people realize that she's not completely white. This story brings to life racism in a way that is so beyond horrifying, in my opinion, and it is done so incredibly well. The writing in here is incredible, and not only does it bring forward racism, but it also brings to light mental health issues, especially mental health issues in the BIPOC community, and I just think, oh my god, it's absolutely incredible. So not only do we have this kind of like fun Carrie retelling, although it's not fun, it's very actually like deep and dark and disturbing, especially when you bring all of the social issues into it, but you get what I mean. We have a Carrie retelling kind of in the modern day. Her inspiration for this story and the way she did it is actually based off a true life story that happened, I believe, in Atlanta, Georgia. I could be wrong, correct me on that if I am, but about a high school who was still having segregated problems like just a couple of years ago. It brings to light a real life racism story as well, but it's absolutely incredible. There's also a mixed media element to this book as well, which again on audio is really well done, because you have this little bit of a podcast which is following the story after the fact. So you have kind of what's happening in present day, and then you have years later after the fact this podcast that's like going back and reviewing everything, and it's just so incredibly done, and you cannot help but feel for Madison. Like, you can really feel the pain that she is going through and what she's experiencing at school and her home life, and how everything just really comes to a head in this. And it's so important of a book. I think it's really important, but I love that it was done in such a digestible kind of horror way, where it's also like a fun horror book as well. Tiffany D. Jackson, like, she has so many YA like social horrors. I mean, I could really pick from any of her catalog, but this one has stuck with me so much, and I just can't highly recommend it enough. Y'all, it is a rainy day, so the lighting might change 5 million times. I apologize ahead of time, but like, I just can't help it, okay? The next one I have to talk about might be one of my favorite books of this year so far. It is definitely up there and one that I keep thinking about, and that is The Dead in the Dark by Courtney Gould. First of all, can we have a moment for this cover? I mean, would you look at it? It's stunning. It's like this pale pink with the purple and these two faces that are like melding together, and I just want to stare at this all day long. But I won't keep you here while I do that. This book is so freaking fun and like creepy and eerie, and I'm obsessed with it. So in this one, we are following Logan, and Logan's dads are these kind of paranormal TV hosts. They have this TV show where they go around places, do the let's talk to ghosts, throw our equipment kind of things. They're paranormal like headhunters, if you will. They have a famous TV show, and Logan is kind of just along for the ride. They have to go back to their hometown of Snakebite because there's people disappearing. It keeps happening, and there's a person who has just gone missing, so they decide to pack up their TV show, go back to Snakebite, and try to figure out what's going on. You know, is it ghosts? Is it not? What is happening? And we are following as Logan gets to this town and tries to kind of immerse herself in this like small town culture that's honestly not very welcoming to her or her dad's, and she's not really sure why her dads are being treated the way that they are, other than the fact that like they are gay, but like they grew up there, so she knows that something's already like a little bit off. And then she encounters a group of kids, and one of them is this girl Ashley. Her boyfriend is the one who has recently gone missing, so they end up like teaming up to try to figure out like what's going down and like what could be happening. So you have like them kind of teaming up even though they don't really like each other, and then you have the dads trying to figure out what's going on and like going off on two separate missions here, and like it all comes to a head, and oh my goodness, I love where this story goes. Again, with YA horror, it just goes above and beyond, and like it's so creepy and eerie. The audiobook was so good, so good. It definitely like sent shivers down my spine. At some points I was like on the edge of my seat, and I love that because we have this like small town vibe, really like everyone is a suspect. Like yes, like her dads are like hunting ghosts, thinking that that might have something to do with it, but like everyone in this town could possibly have something to do with like the people going missing, and you're not really sure which way it's going to go. And I just freaking love that. You can't trust anyone. You can't even trust the main players in here, and it's just so fun, so dark, so disturbing, and the ending is just so good. And again, we have a queer representation throughout it, which like yes, I could not love it more. This is her debut, and it's that good. And I will say, I did read her newest release, and I didn't like it as much as this one. There's just something about this one that's like, oh, it just hits, you guys. It just hits. My next recommendation, I've actually read twice, and the first time that I read it, I only gave it 3 stars. And it was before I really got into YA horror, so I just felt like, I don't know, I wasn't really like into it as much, and I felt like I just didn't appreciate the story for what it was. So I did a reread of it recently and gave it 5 stars. So that just goes to show that like sometimes it's the right book but the wrong time, and like this is definitely one of those cases, and that is Sawkill Girls by Claire Legrand. I cannot believe that I ever gave this book 3 stars. I do not know where my brain was while I was reading this, but like I'm so happy that I decided to do a reread, because this book is freaking amazing. This book is like if you took all of the strong female characters from Stranger Things. We got Nancy, we got Elle, we've got Max. Oh my god, you take them all and you make them like the main players of the show, like the main, and then it's just like the supporting cast of like Hopper and I would say like Will. And just made the show about that. And like and you have all of the craziness of things that happen in Stranger Things with like demogorgons and shit like that. Like same vibe in here, kinda sorta, but like just make it the powerful female characters. Do I need to say more than that? I'm not sure, but like I'll give you a little brief synopsis. In this one, we have 3 kind of main characters here. We have Val, whose family has this kind of dark history. We have Zoe, who is the police chief's daughter. And then we have Marion, who has just moved to this island of Sawkill. And Sawkill kind of has this like urban legend history to it, where some girls have gone missing over the years, like tracing back like hundreds of years. And then Marion moves to the island with her sister Charlotte, and her sister Charlotte goes missing. And Zoe and Val are like enemies. They do not get along whatsoever. Marion is actually living in like the guest house of Val's house because her mother is going to be their new housekeeper. So we have kind of this like tangled web of stories going on, and it all kind of comes together while they on their own try to figure out what's going on with the disappearing girls and like where have they gone and what's going on and is the urban legend to this island true. But again, just like the Stranger Things vibes and the, oh my god, the powerful female characters. We also have queer representation in here, and like it's just so good. It's so fast paced. I love the different perspectives from each of the characters because we really get into their heads and like how they're feeling about everything, especially Val. Her point of view is so dark and disturbing, and like I'm so here for it. And I just loved the way this book ends. It leaves you with like a little moment, and then it's just so good. And honestly, this book has some of the most beautiful writing. I loved it so much. I'm like kicking myself. Like, how did I ever give this 3 stars? I'm not sure. It's 5 stars. It's giving 5 stars energy, and like I need you to read it. My next 2 are actually by the same author, but give kind of like different energy. So I'm going to talk about them separately, but it is My Dearest Darkest and This Delicious Death by Kayla Cottingham. My Dearest Darkest, I'm like, how many times can I say this, but I think is one of my favorite books of the year so far. Oh my goodness, I am still thinking about this. I already want to do a reread of it. It was that good. This is like a dark academia YA horror, which like you put those things together and I'm gonna show up for it because I love dark academia vibes. But like I also love YA horror. It's the perfect combination. In this book we are following Finch, which like cool name. We love a name that we don't see very often. I love it. And Finch's parents recently have passed away in this like horrifying accident. She was actually in the vehicle with them when they passed away, and she was the only one to survive. And she is going to be a new transfer to this private academy. And when she gets there, she meets Selena in like this really awkward situation way, and right off the bat they are like enemies and like not here for each other, kind of. Catch my drift? And one night they go to this party where they summon this like dark and disturbing presence, and everything takes off from there. And I'm just gonna leave it there. Oh my god, this book is like Bunny, Heathers, and The Craft brought to life together in a YA horror. I don't need to say anything else. It is so good. The writing is incredible. You cannot help but like keep reading. This is a page turner for sure. The audiobook is also so good. Highly recommend. And like I just love where this book went. It's so dark. It's so creepy. And again, we have this kind of like craft-ish kind of element to it, which like I just really enjoy. It brought this almost like a magical kind of element to this dark academia YA horror, and like buzzwords. How many buzzwords can I throw out to you to get you to read this book? It's incredible. And again, we have queer representation. We also have incredible mental health representation in here as well. So good. It's just so good. I cannot stop thinking about this book. I need somebody else. I know this book isn't new, but I need more people to read it so I have other people to talk about it with. And then we have This Delicious Death by the same author. This is her newest release, and like this was also so fun and like such a good time. I was not expecting where this book went whatsoever. When I found out about this book, all I knew was that it was about a group of friends who go to a music festival, and it had something to do with cannibalism. And I was like, excuse me, what? And I had already read My Dearest Darkest and knew kind of the way that that story went. So I was like, this is gonna be absolutely amazing. I need to read it immediately. And like, yes, I did. And now I'm here sharing it with all of you because I need y'all to read this too, because it is so fun. It is so fun and just goes in a way that I was not expecting. This is like, don't even want to give you like a true synopsis on this because I would really rather you go in not knowing a lot and being like just as shocked as I was. Like, if you know me at all, you know I don't really read the synopsis on books quite often. So yes, it does mention something that happens in this book on the back of it, but like, don't read it. Just go into it blind and like, you'll just have the best time ever. Yes, it does have to do with cannibalism. It's also got a little like Last of Us element to it. So fun. It's queer. We're at a music festival. This is a perfect summer read. So if you're looking for something to like transition into spooky time, this is the book for you. Oh my goodness. I need more people to read it. I do. So, please. Okay, I have 2 left for you, and technically these are adult horror books, but they follow teenagers, so I'm considering them YA horror. And I think this first one, I think pretty much everyone has read it at this point, but I have to include it in this list because it is that good, and it's my best friend's Exorcism. It's just so good. This is another one that gives total Stranger Things vibes. I mean, even this with like the cover and everything, incredible. So we have Stranger Things vibes, we have Exorcism vibes, and this is like such a beautiful friendship story while also being an incredible horror story as well. In this one, we are following Abby and Gretchen. They have been friends since they were in the 4th grade. And if you are like reading this and you have had any friends in your life for a significant amount of time, like through elementary school to now, you are going to relate so hard to everything that these friends go through, because it really does bring you through their entire friendship and things that they experienced when they were in elementary school and 4th grade up until adulthood, and it is truly just the most relatable shit ever, especially for female friendships. It's absolutely amazing. The friendship vibes in this book are just so heartwarming and so deeply disturbing at the same time. Anyways, we follow Abby and Gretchen from their time when they were in 4th grade up until now, where they are, I believe, sophomores in high school. Yes, sophomores in high school. And they have this get together one night, and Gretchen kind of goes off and comes back and is acting completely different. So this story brings you through Abby trying to figure out like what is going on with Gretchen, while also having Gretchen's experience as well. And this gets so gross and gory and disturbing, but in the best way. And it's like also, like I said, so heartwarming but gross at the same time, and it's exactly what you want in a horror. This is definitely like the borderline, like the gore and the gross I would definitely say is a little bit more adult side, but you have this friendship story where they are sophomores in high school that teeters on that YA side. So it's the perfect combination, and I just love it. I love this book so much. It is my favorite Grady Hendrix. I just think he hit the nail on the head here, and like, I want more stories like this from him. I really do. Like this, I need more of it immediately. And then my last one, this one brought me on a freaking roller coaster, you guys. It is Daphne by Josh Malerman. This book literally has no chapters. No chapters in it. It is one complete run-on chapter. I was going to say run-on sentence, but there are sentences and page breaks, so at least there's that. But it is just so anxiety-inducing, but that's actually, I believe, the point and why he did what he did. Because in this one, we are following Kit, and it is her last summer before she goes off to college. So we kind of have that, like, new adult era of horror, I guess. It's, like, teeters on the edge there. But I'm including it in this list because she's not quite there yet. She's still a senior in high school, okay? And in the town where Kit lives, there's this kind of like urban legend ghost story about this girl named Daphne. It's kind of like a Bloody Mary kind of vibe. Daphne went to their school, died under mysterious circumstances, and there's this kind of lore that she is still around town seeking revenge and coming after these kids. And one night, one of their friends on the basketball team goes missing, and Kit kind of starts to think that maybe the stories about Daphne are real, and it takes off from there. But oh my god, this is such incredible mental health representation. I have never read a book that encapsulates anxiety the way that it does in this book. It is incredibly written. Josh Malerman really did something special here, and I really wish it was labeled as YA, because I do feel like a lot of younger people should read this, and I feel like a lot of people would feel really seen in the way that anxiety is interpreted in this book and the way that it's written. I felt so seen, and I just feel like it needs to be in more hands, especially for young adults. But it is marketed as an adult book. But regardless, even as an adult, I felt seen reading this as someone who suffers with anxiety. I just felt that that representation was so spot on, but also this book gave me so much anxiety as well. But I think that is the absolute point. You are really meant to be like in Kit's head, experiencing things that she's experiencing, and it's so relatable and also just so deeply dark and disturbing at the same time. I don't know what else to say about it. It's incredible. I think it's fun as like a ghost story, but it also goes so much deeper than that, and I really enjoyed Kit as a character. I really enjoyed just that overlooming anxiety. I did listen to the audiobook, which was really helpful in the terms of like trying to get through this, because there are no chapters, there are only page breaks. So like as someone who has a really hard trouble like focusing sometimes, I really enjoy short chapters. So having no chapters at all was a little bit harder for me to like wrap my brain around. So the audiobook did help in that sense. It wasn't anything over the top, it wasn't anything immaculate or being like, you have to listen to the audiobook. I do think if you are someone who really has trouble like me with longer chapters and keeping your attention, that's probably the best way to digest this book. But I also just think the physical read is also such an experience, because it does create that anxiety that you are feeling in the book while also reading it. So maybe listen in tandem while you're physically reading it, but oh my gosh, I loved it. I wish anxiety was represented this way throughout all books. I just think it was so creative, so well done, and I would highly recommend it. And those are all of the YA horror books that I have to recommend for you today. There are so many more, so I could definitely do a part 2, especially as I read more, because I'm just truly obsessed at this point. So like if you want to see a part 2, definitely let me know. Or if you want me to do like a YA thriller mystery version of this video, I would be more than happy to do that as well, because there are definitely a lot in that category that like I absolutely love. I just like want to share my love for YA and like have no shame about it. If you want to see that, definitely let me know. And if there are any that I didn't mention here that you think that I would love, please leave it as a comment. I would love some more YA horror recommendations. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give a thumbs up. Do not forget to subscribe if you are not already. Turn on the bell so you never miss the video, and I will see you in my next one. Bye! I can't feel my foot anymore.
With you and I, the future is bright.